All right, this is Jerry the CDL Whisper coming to you live once again. Today we're going to go over the Modernized Pre Trip. The Modernized Pre Trip started taking place back in 2022, and it just came to fruition in Texas a few months ago. And now we're going to get ready to start implementing it starting October 1st through Houston Community College. One of the new things that I spoke about on the previous video is that you're going to be allowed to have a checklist. Having your checklist, which is here, you want to make sure you got a clipboard with you and an ink pen so you can go through and check off your checklist. All right. The new pre-trip is going to start off on the inside. All right. So as soon as I get in the truck, I want to do a safe start. Safe start, making sure my ABS light come on and go off. And also I put on my seatbelt. Once I put on my seatbelt, I'm going to start working on my brake test. The first step of the brake test is to build the pressure up to the cutoff pressure, which is 120 to 140. So I'll give it a little bit of gas and build the pressure up to 120 to 140. All right, once I have that cutoff pressure from 120 to 140, which is the discharge that you just heard, I'm done with the first step. The second step is to cut the truck off. Turn the key back into the on position where the gauge is sweep. And release both brake valves. With both brake valves released, we want to step on the brake and make sure we don't have any leaks. We should make sure that we don't lose no more than 4 psi in 1 minute. You should time yourself or ask your examiner to time you and tell them when you're starting. Starting now. All right, so in that 1 minute, I did not lose no more than 4 psi. The next thing I want to do is see that I get a light alarm or a warning buzzer. Let me know that my pressure is low, and that should come on before 55 psi. So I'll fan the brakes down and see if I get an alarm before 55. I did. I got an alarm before 55 psi. So the next step is I will continue fanning down, which is the last step, and make sure that both of my brake valves pop out between 20 to 45 psi. Pay close attention to your valves. One of them pop, both of them pop. Both of my valves pop between 20 to 45 psi. Now, with that being said, we'll just start the vehicle again. And while we're waiting on the air pressure to build up, then we'll start with our in-cab. Start with our in-cab. We're going to follow our checklist and make sure that we check off that we did the brake test. All right. Now, I want to go through and do my indicators. Doing my indicators, I'm going to do left signal, right signal, turn on my headlights. I'm going to get my high beam, and then I'll do my four ways. I'll check that off. Then I'll check my emergency equipment, which is under this seat here. I will tell the examiner that my emergency equipment is under the seat. I have a fire extinguisher that's fully charged and properly rated, and I also have 3 reflective triangles that's securely mounted inside of this box under the seat. Also, I have at least 6 spare fuses, and I will check that off. Also, my seatbelt is another part of my emergency equipment, and I will make sure that my seatbelt is securely fastened and it's not cut, torn, or frayed. All right, that falls under the emergency equipment. And then I will check the windshield and the traffic monitoring devices. That would be considered my mirrors or whatever cameras I may have on the vehicle. So I check my windshield. Make sure my windshield is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. It's not missing any rubber seals. and also it's free of any illegal stickers. Then I would check my windshield wipers and washer fluid. I would make sure that my wiper is working and also that the washer fluid is working. All right, and I would check that off. My heater and defrost, I want to make sure that the heater and defrost is working. Turn it to the heat, make sure that the heat is blowing. Then I would turn it to defrost mode and make sure the defrost is working. All right, and the defrost is working. Then I would check my horns. Check my city horn, my air horn, and make sure that it's working properly. All right, and then I'll move on to the last portion of my brake test because my pressure is built up. All right, we're going to be checking our parking brake on the truck, trailer, and the service brakes. The first thing that I would like to check is my parking brake for my trailer. All right, in order to do that, I'm going to release the tractor, put the truck in drive, and tug on it slightly to make sure that the trailer brakes are holding. And they are. Put it back in neutral. Now I'm going to be testing the tractor brake. I'm going to release the trailer brake, put the truck in drive, and make sure that the tractor brakes are holding. All right, so we're going to be checking the left signal. We're going to be checking the right signal. Our headlights are already on, so we'll check the high beams, make sure they're working. Also, the four ways. All right, so after you've had the examiner step out and check all your lights front and back, you check that off on your list. And then you want to make sure you use 3 points of contact to exit the vehicle. In order to do that properly, you must put down your clipboard and use 3 points of contact. That means 2 hands and 1 foot or 2 feet and 1 hand on the vehicle at all times. You want to get out backwards in this motion and make sure that you use 3 points of contact. All right, moving around to the front of the vehicle and engine area. First thing I want to check is my lenses. I have a few different set of lenses, but the one that sticks out the most to me now is the headlight. I want to check my headlight, make sure all my lenses are not cracked or broke, and they're clean and clear. Also up top is my clearance lights. I make sure the lenses are properly mounted, secured. They're clean, they're clear, and they're amber in color. And I'll check that off. Opening the hood. When opening the hood, you want to make sure that you'll put your foot on the bumper and your hand in the gripping part of the hood, and use your legs to push the hood instead of your back. All right. As before, we'll start on the passenger side. We'll want to make sure that we're checking our fluid levels. Fluid levels here. Okay, fluid levels. The first one I'm going to check is my coolant reservoir. Checking my coolant reservoir to make sure that I have the proper level of coolant. It's between the add and full mark with the caps on tight, and it's also not leaking. Then I would check all my lines and hoses to make sure that they're all properly mounted, secured, and none of them are leaking. On this side, I want to check my engine oil dipstick. I'll check my engine oil dipstick, pull it out, wipe it clean, and make sure that it's between the add and the full. Also, another fluid I want to check is my power steering fluid. Power steering reservoir is properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, and it's also not leaking. It's filled to the proper level with the cap on tight. All right. Then I want to check for other fluid leaks and air leaks. I want to make sure that when I look underneath the truck, I see no fluid leaking on the ground. And also I want to listen and make sure that I hear no air leaking from my air compressor. My air compressor on this truck is right behind here. And I'm checking to make sure I don't hear any air leak. All right, then I will check my steering system. Checking my steering system, I want to check my 3-piece steering linkage. Make sure that it's all properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, bent, or broken with the cotter pins and the castle nuts in place. And it's also properly greased. Then I will go to my steering axle, check my tires and rims. I will check my tires, make sure there's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and they have at least 4/32 of an inch of tread depth. And I know that these cannot be recapped. Then I will check my rims. I'll make sure my rims are not cracked, bent, or broken with no illegal welds. Then I will check my lug nuts. My lug nuts are all properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, bent, or broken. None are missing, and they're not loose. They don't show any signs of looseness, such as rust trails. Then I will go in for my spring mounts and shocks. My spring mounts are here. They're properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, bent, or broken. Also, the leaf springs are properly mounted and secured. They're not shifted. And I will check my shocks to make sure that the shock absorber is properly mounted and secured on the top and the bottom. It's also not leaking. Some of these shocks contain fluid. Then I would check my brake lines and hoses. Also, checking my brake line, which is here, my brake hose, or brake line. And I'm checking that to make sure that it's properly mounted and secured with no leaks. And I'm also looking inside and checking my brake lining and my brake drum and making sure that it's free of any contaminants, such as oil or grease. And then I would move on to the side of my vehicle. Well, let me close the hood first. Moving on to the side of the vehicle. First thing I'm looking for is lenses and reflectors. I see I have one here. So I will check that lens and reflector, make sure that it's properly mounted and secured, it's clean and clear, and not cracked. My traffic monitoring devices. On this particular truck, I don't have a camera or a sensor, but I will check my mirror, make sure that it's properly mounted and secured, not cracked or broken. My battery box. I also want to check my battery box. I want to make sure that my battery box is properly mounted and secured and properly latched. My fuel tank and def tank. This particular truck does not have a def tank, but I'm going to check my fuel tank, make sure it's properly mounted and secured. The cap is on tight and it's not leaking. Next, I want to check my frame. Checking my frame. The frame of my truck is properly mounted and secured, and it should have no holes in it. Then I will check my coupling devices that makes this vehicle a combination vehicle. I will check my air and electrical connections on the tractor and the trailer to make sure that they're all properly mounted and secured with no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and they're not leaking. Also, make sure the glad hand seals are in place. Then I will check my fifth wheel skid plate. My fifth wheel skid plate, which is here, is properly mounted and secured and is properly greased. I would also check the locking mechanisms to make sure that the safety lock and the release arm is in the lock position. Just remember, if you study, you will succeed. What you put into it is what you'll get out of it. God bless.